It's 10 at 3 time at Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? Hope you're well. Hope everything in your life is going great. I hope you're having a nice Friday, getting ready for the weekend here on this Friday, or Friday, as my wife calls it. Of course, she works Monday to Friday, so it really is a Friday for her. I'm like, well, I work usually during the weekend, but I mean, that's okay. It's not a big deal. This weekend, hopefully not. Joined by a special guest that we're going to say welcome to here in just a second. But first, get to the Lord of the Streams, Tom Barclay helping us out on the ones and twos today, and Ben McKee in here with us today. And Ben is someone who I worked with for a long time at 24/7 Sports, and someone who professionally I respect and personally care for, to the extent that even though we are technically competitors now, I'm bringing him in this room to talk shop with us. Ben, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me in here and putting up with me for an hour once again.
It's going to be great, man. And I guess first off, before we get going, how you feeling? Everything good? Everybody knows it's been through quite the washer this year. How you feeling?
Yeah, I feel great. I've been blessed. Got good news for Thanksgiving, so it was a tough couple of months during football season, which is always fun. I guess there's
just add that on top of it.
Yeah, never a ideal time to have that C word, but especially not during football season when you work in this business. But it is what it is, and certainly people out there who have it worse than I do. So always a positive outlook, and on the other side of it, which is all that matters, and thankful for that, and appreciate you checking in and asking.
And you get to go right into you get the news right before Thanksgiving, going into the holiday season. Now you go into the holiday season. It just adds a little bit. I mean, it's always a special time, right? But it just adds more to it. I would imagine that it adds more to it, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving, Christmas, I think we all sit around and count our blessings and recall what we're thankful for, or think about what we're thankful for. And I certainly have two little ones and a wife and parents, and like everybody else does. So when you're able to come together and be with one another, it certainly makes it more special. It makes you appreciate the little things in life more than you ordinarily would. It stinks that it takes that reminder to allow it to sink in a little bit more, but that's part of life. We always have those wake up calls every now and then to remind one another and each other what makes life special, and that's you and yours and the people you care about.
There's no kidding. For the past 10, 11 years for me, went through something, not the same thing, but a health thing, and it puts everything really quickly into perspective about things. And that means that we get to spend the next 50-odd minutes just talking ball, which is fun, right? We got to see we're good, we're healthy, we're getting ready to go for the holidays, we're all excited about it. And now we just get back to ball, which is the fun stuff, right? The fun stuff, usually fun.
The things that don't matter in life but do matter a whole bunch.
Yes. The things that are they put food on the table for us, quite literally, Yes. For us they do, certainly, but it's nice. It's nice to be able to sit here and just talk ball again. Although this is what's cracking me up, Ben, is in this business, there are sometimes, it's very rare that you go into a week when you're covering a college sports, a university, an athletic department. It's very rare, except for maybe in the summer, when you go into a week and go, it's just not a lot going on. Like you look at the calendar and you've tried to put everything, okay, here's the games and media availabilities and practices, here's where we got to be, try to coordinate that with school pickup and all the things that we have to do. And it's like, and you see largely just a blank canvas sitting there Saturday, maybe started last Friday. You're looking at what's going on for the weekend and the next week, and you're like, there's just nothing really in that on that dry erase board. Nothing in the phone apps. Nothing on, and you're like, what? So what are we gonna write? What are we gonna talk about? Like, we'll be fine, but like, gives you that little bit of, this is different. What do I do? Is there free time maybe? Which of course there's not.
No.
But in general, you're just thinking, okay, we'll come up with some ideas throughout the week. We have meetings. When I worked with you, we had them. I think y'all had one today. We have ours on Tuesdays. We have other meetings, and you go, okay, well, here's how we'll get ahead of this and have stuff to do. And then, don't worry, because in literally just about every single major sport, there's going to be big news this week. Just going right off the top. Monday, you wake up, hey, Tim Banks gone. Oh, Okay. So that's new. Not shocking, but, still. And then you go into the Cade Phillips situation with his injury out for the season. You go into, the football schedule dropping, which we did know was going to happen. And then, by the way, Michigan, that's going to happen.
Yeah, that was a big one.
So it's so funny because I almost didn't have to write anything down on the itinerary here today because it's like Ben's coming in and we're going to talk about what kind of weird week it was, because it was.
Yes. All you do is just you turn on the mics. That's all you have to do, and
yes.
you can pick from any of the endless topics that have popped up this week. Not only was the old defensive coordinator essentially fired, they've now hired a new one very quickly. You've had a couple of draft opt-outs. I mean, it's been one thing after the next. And of course, it follows up. Tennessee is the only place where its head baseball coach could go leave for a professional major league job some way, somehow. That somehow happened during football season as well.
Yes.
So appreciate the baseball program sitting out this week, not giving us anything like that to talk about in the midst of all this football and basketball news. That was plenty. We didn't need any more on our plate.
Yeah, the only thing they put out was something that we already knew had happened, which was the Josh Reynolds promotion. Which is why he came to Tennessee in the first place a while back, was, hey, in case Frank decides that he's done, just in case Frank decides he wants to either retire, which people thought would happen, go back to Texas, or go take a job in Major League Baseball across the country, you got your guy already here. So now you weren't thinking at the time that Tony Vitello would be going with him, of course, but it's one of those rare moments where you make a move like that and it goes how you think it's going to go. Like you bring in your next pitching coach while your pitching coach is still there. So you're like, whenever he goes, we got the guy already. So that's nice how that can work out in life. But that's been their only news this week. They've been, knock on wood. I think this is metal, but regardless, we'll knock on this anyway. But I guess we'll start with football. Might as well. Still football season, technically.
They did schedule a bowl game this week. That also happened.
Yeah, it's. I mean, who even's gonna play? Who's gonna coach? Who's gonna? I mean, listen. Hey, we'll take it seriously right before it's played, and then during that, and then after that, it's like the Vandy game was the end of the season. That's the memory. No matter, I don't care if Tennessee goes out and loses 50-0 or wins 50-0 against Illinois. That feeling at the end of the Vanderbilt game has got to be what defines this offseason, I think.
It will. It absolutely will define it. I think it's already helped define it with Josh Heupel making the decision to move on from Tim Banks. Not that was the only reason. I think it had been in the back of his mind for quite a while. But the fact that they weren't able to make any adjustments in the second half and just had no answers for Heisman hopeful Diego Pavia, I think pushed that one across the finish line. So it's already had a ripple effect just with that decision being pushed across that finish line and now already having a defensive coordinator put in place. You're already feeling the effects of that embarrassing loss, which is what that was. It wasn't just frustrating. That was embarrassing for the Tennessee football program. And I think you can say that while giving respect to Vanderbilt. That is a really good Vanderbilt team. Mm-hmm. It's not your usual Vanderbilt football program right now.
It's not just Pavia either. They got some guys.
Yes, they absolutely do. Pavia is he stirs the drink, but he's not the only part of the drink. He's not the only piece to that cocktail. So you can give respect to Vanderbilt while also recognizing that Tennessee is the premier college football brand in this state, and that should never happen in that regard. So I think you're already feeling the effects of that. The unfortunate part is while you'll feel that Vanderbilt loss throughout the course of the offseason, as you said, you have nothing to gain in this bowl game and not everything to lose. I was going with the old school saying there.
The old school, yeah.
But fans will be upset if you lose to Illinois.
Sure.
Even though the loss won't really matter, like fans will still be upset, whereas if you win –
they're still mad that you lost to Vanderbilt.
Still mad that you lost to Vanderbilt, and it's like, who cares? This game is meaningless anyways. Whereas if you lose, they're not going to have that feeling.
Yeah, the only time that it is acceptable And this is, I mean, I don't mean it as any disrespect to Vanderbilt. I really don't, because that's what they're doing now as a program, what Clark Lee and Jerry Kill and Barton Simmons and just everybody who is in that program, right? They've built something good. Like they've built something good. They're starting to recruit at a higher level. But you are still Tennessee, and the only way that Tennessee can lose to Vanderbilt and have still a good football season is if it wins an SEC championship or a national championship to overcome that. That's the only way that a Tennessee loss to Vanderbilt in football is acceptable, I think. I just can't think of another scenario where it's acceptable.
Yeah, I agree. And I hate that because it demeans what Clark Lee has done at Vanderbilt, and that's not the purpose of our thoughts that we are sharing, but it's the truth. I mean, Tennessee is Tennessee football, and Vanderbilt is Vanderbilt football for a reason. And it does not go well for coaches when they lose to Vanderbilt. Not at all saying that Josh Heupel is on the hot seat, because I don't think that's the case whatsoever, and I don't think he should be on the hot case.
He shouldn't be.
For any of the couple of knuckleheads out there that think that he is or should be going into the offseason. But you just, with the resources that you have, even with Vanderbilt committing more than they have in the past, like you should not look soft and lack the toughness that you lacked there. And it was embarrassing if you're Tennessee to allow that quarterback who ran his mouth about you for an entire year, let you know what he was going to do, and you allowed him to come in and do it and did nothing to fight back. The only time that you stopped him is when he beat himself, and that was early in the first half when he was trying to do too much with those red zone interceptions. And then not only are you allowing to do what he said he was going to do in your stadium, in the process of that, you're also allowing him to strike the Heisman pose a million times. Now, I think Diego looked a little thirsty for the Heisman.
I think thirsty just sort of defines
a little overkill with the Heisman pose.
He just kind of he's extra. He's just extra. He's always extra.
Yeah, and that's what makes him such a great football player.
Yeah.
And
because he's 5'9" or 5'10".
Right, and well, they say 6 foot on his bio, and
5'10" tops.
One of my group chats was chatting about one of the photos going around at the Heisman ceremonies this weekend, and so they all have their media stuff today, and there's a photo of the 4 Heisman finalists standing next to one another, and Jeremiah Love and Diego Pavia are both listed at 6 foot, and it is very clear that Jeremiah Love is 2-3 inches taller than a supposedly 6 foot Diego Pavia. But you can't, when you allow, as you mentioned, when you allow Vanderbilt to come in and do what they did, and you allow Diego to do what he did in your stadium, and you didn't do anything about it, it sparks an offseason of change, and as I mentioned, I think you're already seeing the ripple effect of that.
Yeah, if you're anywhere between like 5'10" and 6'3", I can stand next to you and know how tall you are, because I know I'm 6'1". So like if you're talking about like a basketball center, the difference between 6'10" and 7 foot, I don't know, it's up there, it's tall, right? But or like really short, you're like, that's pretty short. But if you're anywhere between like 5'9", 5'10", and 6'3", and I'm standing like in the same room as you, I can tell you how tall somebody, and he's not. I can tell you this thing: he's not 6 feet tall. Chris Lofton's not 6'2".
Like Ziegler's not 6 foot tall.
No, there's a lot of things that you list. It's like even like Chaz Lanier, who's now magically 6'3" because they cut the dreads a little bit, and I guess he was wearing lifts when he played at Tennessee. But it's in all seriousness, it's you can sit there and say that Tennessee's defense had to learn to make adjustments, and it did, because you had to play without 2 corners who could be longtime NFL guys, first round, second round picks. I would say, in fairness, that the 2 you put in were both third-team All-SEC by the league's coaches. And
one's mocked this week on ESPN as a first-round pick. Might be a first-round pick as well.
And so you're like, okay. And the Arion Carter injury, that hurt quite a bit. They don't have – now they didn't – if they build a better roster, it doesn't matter. But you could tell there for a few weeks he just was not – and I still think that's why the Alabama line moved. I think they knew – I swear that I think somebody got wind of the fact that Tennessee was hiding that Arion Carter was hurt. And I'm like, oh, that's why it moved. That's why it moved, because it moved fast. And it was like, oh, something happened there. So they knew something. There's a conspiracy. But I don't really mean conspiracy. I just mean somebody got wind of it.
They knew that Josh Heupel was going to run out the same formation right before halftime after he called timeout.
Yeah, and then that God bless him, Joey Aguilar was going to throw that pass to quite literally the only place you can't throw it, because especially when you're in goal line, that thing's going. It's a house call. If you throw that ball there, your receivers are all going one way, and there aren't that many of them out there. Everybody else is tight ends, quarterbacks, running backs, linemen. They ain't catching a DB or even a really fast linebacker. Like he's gone. And so, but yeah, that's I get why they did it, and I think it's good to see that Josh Heupel kind of read the room. I think that because I don't think it's fair to say he's never fired anybody. I just don't think it's been worded that way. There have been guys who have gone elsewhere, and he allowed them, because he's, by all accounts, a pretty decent human, lets it be announced that they've taken a job somewhere else and doesn't call it what it is. In this situation, I think I don't think Tim Banks got that same grace, because I think they kind of needed it to be known that this was not acceptable and there will be consequences for it. And nothing, you always say nothing personal when it is personal, right? Like you lose your job, it's personal. Yep. Even if you're getting paid a lot to be not having your job, it is still, but I think that was, I don't want to say calculated, but I think there's a reason why that was done that way. And with the hire that was made, it's so funny because the day that the hire was made, we sat here for an hour talking about Walters, because to me, he just stood out like this. If you could get this guy, I think this could be like a perfect fit with the age, the experience, knowing people in the program, knowing that he's been a coordinator or worked on staffs where Heupel's offenses were played, so he knows how to put a good product on the field in that unique situation. And he's been a head coach before at a Power 4 program, Purdue, but still a Power 4 program that always beats Tennessee in everything that it plays, always, but still. And then, of course, it comes out that they're going with the first name that I mentioned on Monday, but then I followed that up by saying they're not going to go hire somebody like that. So what do you think about this, Ben? Because I said yesterday, if you had told me like I could pick anybody I wanted, price, no option, somebody who would actually maybe take the job, I probably would have had Walters 1, but this guy was number 2. And a lot of people would have had him at number 1, and it's there's never a risk-free hire, I guess.
No.
But this is a guy who built a defense that 350 days ago he was wearing a shirt that said national champion because of the defense partially that he had done. And he also put together the number 1 scoring defense nationally at Oklahoma State, which should be impossible.
Yes, it should be. And that was really before you're able to overturn a roster like you are now as well. I think that might have been 2021, so maybe right at the start of this new NIL paying players era. But you just look anywhere Jim Knowles has been, and his defenses have steadily gotten better and have become one of the best defenses in the country. You go back and look what he did at Duke, and, I mean, it wasn't super consistent because he was at Duke, where it's hard to collect talent.
You got to cycle up.
And he cycled up to where he had a couple of really good defenses at Duke. Duke football, not Duke basketball, Duke lacrosse, Duke football, with David Cutcliffe. And it's hard for me not to think that David Cutcliffe didn't have a say in this, not in the sense of say, hey, go hire this guy, but in terms of Josh Heupel or somebody being able to consult through second, third parties what he thought of Jim Knowles, and why would you not trust David Cutcliffe's judgment on a defensive coordinator, a guy he worked with at 2 stops. I believe he worked with him at Ole Miss.
He did.
As well, and then for, 7 years at Duke? Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a 2-year tenure or even a 4-year tenure. He was with David Cutcliffe and Jim Knowles were together for a long time at Duke, a long time in the world of college athletics. But
forever in college athletics.
I think it's as good of a hire as Josh Heupel could have made. I think Ryan Walters would have been really good, because of the familiarity. Walters is really good.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an attitude that I think the coaching staff kind of needs and has lacked since Alex Golish has left, the one who's not afraid to speak his mind and be, for lack of a better term, a butthole at times.
Yep.
And I do think that point of Alex Golish is brought up quite a bit. I think it can be a bit overhyped at times, but
Hendon Hooker was pretty good.
Yes, Hendon Hooker was good. But I'm just, in terms of talking about being somebody who is aggressive in team meetings and being a butt kicker and that, I think that point against Josh Heupel and lacking that on his staff has been a bit overused at times. But they on the other hand, they could use somebody along those lines at times, because you look at this year's team and I think there's a sense of complacency. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. I thought they were a bit soft at times, not at times, in the second half against Vanderbilt, where it was clear that
it was clear then. It was
mental
clear.
And physical toughness, and maybe not as clear against Alabama and Oklahoma, but Alabama and Oklahoma pushed Tennessee around. They did not have the same success along the trenches in those games as they did in the other games. So I think Jim Knowles adds that as well. I think Ryan Walters would have, and that would have been one of the reasons he would have been a good hire. But I think Jim Knowles is as good of a hire as Josh Heupel could have made, and it's really because of why I felt the same as you early in the week. Everybody's mentioning Jim Knowles, and I thought that was a great idea and absolutely somebody that you should call. I kind of thought that Tennessee was not capable of bringing in the prom queen. I kind of think that Josh Heupel hired out of his league, and that's no disrespect to Josh Heupel or Tennessee. That's just what I think of Jim Knowles, and I think that he's really, really good and wanting to work with this offense, because it is not easy for defenses to play complementary football with, just in the sense that they're on the field a ton, whether Tennessee is scoring quickly or they have a quick 3 and out. They do not have a ton of time on the sideline to rest or make adjustments. And not only are you having to deal with that, and I don't believe Jim Knowles has really worked with that style of offense.
No,
he's regarded as one of the
faster,
best.
But
but not
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, but not anything that like Josh Heupel
Correct.
is doing. So not having worked with that really before, and then him being regarded as one of the best defensive minds in the entire sport, I didn't know how interested Jim Knowles would be in the job. And so for Josh Heupel to be able to pull this off, and really, I mean, you look at the contract numbers, just north of $2 million. I mean, paying less than what I thought they would, too.
I thought it would start at 3.
Yeah, I would, too. And they got $1 million less than that. Maybe the buyout at Penn State helps and allows Tennessee to do that. But again, I think Josh Heupel and Tennessee did as good of a job replacing Tim Banks as it could have, and certainly upgraded.
Yeah, and I guess, there are only and we talk about this a lot because people occasionally will say that we're being negative when we say something, or that we're being overly optimistic or overly pessimistic or whatever. And I think when I say that something is a concern, I don't mean that I think it will happen. I just think it means that if you're going to have an honest conversation about anything, you don't have to play devil's advocate, because that gets kind of annoying, but you just want to have an honest discussion where you say, listen, I think there's a much better chance this is a really good hire than anything else. I think stats say that if you give this a little bit of patience, you're going to really like the result. There's a long history saying this. I think it's also fair to say, okay, here would be the concerns, just for the sake of discussion. And I think one of them is one that you just mentioned about what is his comfort level, or with all the vast experience he has, does any of it run even a little parallel to what he's going to have to do now?
Will he have patience working with Tennessee's offense?
Yes. Will he understand that in practice, Tennessee's going to run Tennessee's offense? Now, maybe you can get some scout team guys to go over there and simulate things and all that, but like when you go good on good, Josh Heupel's the head coach. The offense is doing what it does, and you have to accept that. And that's not a bad thing, because some coaches who have defensive backgrounds would maybe be the same thing where they're the head coach, but it's the other side of the ball, right? So that's not – I think it's a fair question to have. And the other question is, you see they're retaining a lot of the other defensive staff, which I think in most of those cases makes sense. But it does – what it does for me anyways is it takes you're taking a guy who's 60 years old, right? And how much passion could he have for recruiting and some of these things? And if you're going to do that, if you know he's not, what are you surrounding him with to go get people to the table? Maybe he just comes in like Mo Rivera and he's a closer, right? Him and the NIL people come in at the end of the day and they close it. But everybody's got money. Everybody's got money. Everybody that Tennessee's competing against also has money. So you still have to get into the picture where the money matters. Like, it'd be like on one of those, reality shows where you got to advance to the final before somebody could pick you. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to. I just wonder if I think it's great that Heupel has identified this as an area to be what I would call ruthless, and Tom said maybe decisive is a better word, and I think that might be true. I think it probably is. Decisive might be a better word for it, but I think you just have to make sure that you're prepared for maybe kind of lifting up Jim Knowles in the areas where he's not elite.
Yeah. I kind of, in terms of looking at his potential flaws, the first thing that has been mentioned this week amongst Tennessee fans is that his defenses take some time to kind of get going and get up off the mat. It takes a year or two for Jim Knowles really to get going at a school. I think that's being overhyped. Maybe I look back a year, maybe next December I look back and say, oh, well, those people were absolutely spot on. But he's taking over a new situation for a reason. Outside of Ohio State, he took over Duke, Oklahoma State. Penn State is also a little bit different because
that was a weird situation with the pressure on Franklin and giving him everything he wants.
Right. But even taking over that defense, you're taking over a defense that was just in the Final Four of college football and a game away from the national championship game. So theoretically, that defense already has pieces in place, whereas Duke, Oklahoma State, and now Tennessee, yes, there's a lot of natural talent on Tennessee's defense because Tennessee has recruited pretty well on that side of the football the last couple of years. They were 90th in the 90s in total defense for a reason this past year. He's not taking over a great situation. So my point is, like, yes, it may take a year or two for his defenses to get going, but let's look at the places he took over. Duke, Oklahoma State, and now a Tennessee defense that is in a bad spot. Naturally, it's going to take some time to fix that mess. It's not like he's taking over Ohio State, and in year one, he has the 14th best defense in the country. Penn State a little bit lower by Jim Knowles' expectations, but like it's hard for me to judge anything he did at Penn State, good or bad, because of the situation that they were dealt with firing James Franklin so early in the season. So is it a fair question to ponder? Yeah, no doubt. There's when something like this happens, it's fair to have conversations about everything, positive and negative.
Because the coaches need to be doing that.
Yes, but like in terms of if you ask me, hey, what's your big concern with that hire, that would not be the first place I went. Because, again, when you're taking over something that's a mess, you're not going to have instant results. And, like, if Tennessee signs up for the 33rd best defense in the country next year, I think they would take that in year one, given that would be an improvement of nearly 50 spots from this past season. My concern is his defenses, statistically speaking, do not force a lot of turnovers. You hear good things about making in-game adjustments, and the final product is what it needs to be in terms of looking at it statistically and yards given up and points given up, total defense and all that. The numbers always get to where you want them to be. But along the way, they, statistically speaking, do not force a lot of turnovers. So that would be my big concern, because I do think that is such a critical aspect of playing winning defense. But even with a lack of turnovers produced, he is still able to get the end result that is required. So I think, okay, there may be this question to ponder or two, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think there's a ton to worry about if you're a Tennessee fan with the hire of Jim Knowles.
Yeah, and people say, like, what's the concern? if you're not forcing turnovers. I mean, you're almost never getting a short field if you don't do that. Like you're making, if your offense has to go 70 to 80 to 85 yards to get to the end zone every time it gets the ball, you're not going to get there as much as if you're occasionally getting put on the doorstep. You know what I mean? Like it matters. Plus, I don't know if you know this, but turnovers, possessions that end in a turnover historically have 0 points. Like, so you're not giving up any points there, so that does help.
It's a good stat.
It's a good stat. It's a good, like the team with the fewest amounts of runs or points loses every game except for golf, I think.
And the team that scores more points always wins.
Except for in golf.
That's what I hear.
Except for in golf. Yeah. But it's that's where, and I find it hard to believe that Jim Knowles and Josh Heupel did not sit down in their conversations and talk about, so let's get this out of the way. You're 60 years old. Do you even know what TikTok is? Like, so what are we going to do for, recruiting stuff? And, with my staff here, here's what I have in place. Is that going to be cool with you? And is there anybody that's got to come with you, even if it's just a GA or quality control, or who's got to come with you? Because you got to have somebody. You can't just walk in and be the only guy and not know anybody, right? Like, you got to know. And it's not like one of those things where it's like Willie or Gardner where everybody knows them just in the business. You know what I mean? Like, it can't be that. But it's that would be one. And then I would think, I'm just guessing that Jim Knowles does not take this job without assurances that when it comes down to the end of the day, for defensive recruits you really want, we won't be like outbid. Like, we might lose a recruit, but I just can't imagine, because where he's been and what he's used to, at least in the past 5 years.
Since he got to Ohio State.
Yeah. So at Ohio State and then the year at Penn State, like, can you go get, like, if I say I need this guy?
I think I would be surprised if he ran into that issue. I think Tennessee's in a really healthy spot financially. I think they're going to commit more money than they ever have to its roster this season. I think there will be a heavy focus on the defensive side of the ball.
Gotta be.
As well. And that doesn't mean that you just give anybody anything they want.
Yeah, that doesn't end well.
No. They're still – even if I think Tennessee should be more aggressive in the portal this offseason than they have been the last couple. Even with me thinking that they need to be more aggressive, that doesn't mean that you give anything to anybody. That doesn't mean you meet this player's demands, that player's requests. You don't give them a blank check and say, here, tell me how much you want. Like, you still have to treat it like an NFL model of scouting this player and putting a dollar amount on that player for what you think they're worth, because you still are building a roster with an X amount of dollars. You don't have an endless pot.
You're not Texas Tech.
No, and no, you're not. You don't have an endless pot. That you have a salary cap essentially, and some positions are more important than others. Some players are going to be better than others, and you still have to view it through that prism. But even with that being said, like, I don't think Jim Knowles is going to run into the issue of Tennessee doesn't have enough money to go get this safety that they want, this interior lineman that they want. I think Tennessee's going to be very aggressive in that regard. And to your point about recruiting, I'm not as concerned about the recruiting aspect of it as some may be. Again, maybe like how I also am not as concerned as others about it taking a year or two for his defense to develop. Maybe I look silly in this regard as well in a year or two from now.
We can't be afraid to look silly. We wouldn't be able to predict anything, if you know what I mean.
No, it's just the recruiting aspect. Does he need to be involved in recruiting? Absolutely. I think that was an issue with Tim Banks down the stretch this past year. Tim Banks did not do enough in recruiting. He really didn't do anything.
Especially for a youngish guy,
Yeah, he wasn't really doing anything. It's not that it was that he was just recruiting is a lot of effort, and are you willing to continually make phone calls and reach out and
hard yards, and
you're not, as a coordinator, you're not even asked to do it as much as assistant coaches are. Assistant coaches lay the groundwork for that, and then you can kind of swoop in and at the last second, like you mentioned early, even as a coordinator, and hopefully close the deal at times. So I think in that regard, he doesn't need to be Tennessee's lead recruiter or anything. And even if he doesn't have a reputation for being a lights-out recruiter, like, I think he will still help elevate Tennessee's defensive recruiting.
Yep.
Because you mentioned Frank Anderson earlier. Tennessee baseball, Frank Anderson was not doing any recruiting the last couple of years, and yet Tennessee still signs elite pitching prospect after elite pitching prospect after elite pitching prospect. And why is that?
doubt.
Because they know they're going to work for Frank Anderson. They know that even though Frank isn't recruiting me right now, like Frank's going to help me get to the next level. And Jim Knowles can help these defensive recruits get to the next level, become better football players. So even if he's not the primary recruiter, Rodney Garner now has more ammunition. Chop, a.k.a. Lavorne Harbin, the outside linebackers coach, he has more ammunition. William Inge, who has been recruiting terrifically, just like Rodney has.
You can see why he's just so personable.
Yeah. They have more ammunition now. So even though Jim Knowles may not be the lead guy, I still think he will have a positive impact on Tennessee football recruiting and help the defensive side in recruiting, even if he's not doing the majority of the work, just because I think his brand name sells itself.
And before we move on and go talk about basketball down the stretch, because, Ben is also a basketball guy. That's the beauty of having Ben in here, is that you can talk about any sport. You can throw anything at the wall, and it will stick at least a little bit.
Except
right?
soccer.
Yeah, but I mean, Tennessee's got the women's soccer team, but it's not like you're professionally responsible for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and shout out to Joe Kurt, by the way, not Joe Dirt, Joe Kurt. Life's Not a Garden. They've got a nice program going on over there. But I will say, for people who have asked, why don't you talk about scheme? Because everybody just plays nickel now. That's why are you 4-2-5 or 3-3-5? That's all that matters.
And as long as you're not a 3-3-5 in the SEC, there's no need to talk about it.
Yeah, you're fine. You just put 4 guys on the line of scrimmage at least. Have a 5th guy on the edge if you want, standing up, put it down, whatever. That's whatever. You're not able to schematically reinvent the wheel there, because offenses are so spread out they don't let you do that. Like Vanderbilt is one of the only teams where you really kind of have to put a base defense out there sometimes, and they spread it, but they run it a lot and do what they do. So, and the quarterback can run and all these things and whatever, like in quarterback spy, whatever, yada yada. Just stay in your gap. If you're supposed to be in the A gap, be in the A gap. You're supposed to be in the B gap, be in the B gap. Especially if you're not the best athlete on the field, be where you're supposed to be. Either be where you're supposed to be or be so talented that you'll still make a play. Those are the two things. Just do those things, and no matter how you line it up, I don't really care. That's blitz if you want, drop if you want, just execute. Don't have plays where you're watching film going, has this guy have you ever done a pursuit drill once? Like, do they still do the pursuit drill in football? Like, it used to be like a daily thing in practice. You did the pursuit drill every day. So guys like me who weren't fleet of foot knew, hey, if there's ever a fumble or whatever, you go here, you got no chance. You start running that way, you might have a chance. Like, and you watch this on film and you go, do you not know how much faster the guy is than you? What are you doing? But regardless, that's why I don't talk about scheme much, because it's just you're playing nickel 90% of the time, dime sometimes, then goal line. Just execute. That's whatever. I mean, that's people who, I'm sure the old, like the film heads and everything, and fairly so, will say there's more to it than that. Sure.
Yeah.
But broad strokes. Be where you're supposed to be, and the defense usually is okay.
Yeah, well, and I'm not going to talk about the X's and O's super in-depth, because I did not play football at a high level and certainly did not coach.
Oh, God, I never did either.
At a high level. So I don't like to dive into it for that reason, but I am curious to see how Tennessee's players take to Jim Knowles' is teaching points and coaching points, because I think that's a big area that needs to get cleaned up is just the understanding of what they're doing. From the players' standpoint, there was a lot of confusion, whether it be it wasn't being taught well or the system itself was confusing. And that is a concern, don't get me wrong, to my earlier points about me not being overly concerned. But like you talk to people about Jim Knowles' defense, and they say that it is complicated and takes some time to learn. And that's typically what you have with some of the better defensive coordinators in the sport. That's what makes them so good. But it is a new system that the players are going to have to learn. And they were confused with the prior system that was thought to be a bit complex. And here comes another complex system. But what I would just surmise based off of Jim Knowles' track record is he does a good job of explaining, even though it is complex, he does a good job of explaining it to the players, and they have an understanding of what they need to do. So That is something to watch for, and especially going into year one is how quickly do the players pick up the system. Because, again, as you talk to people about Jim Knowles' defense, they do tell you that it is complex and can take some time to learn.
Yeah, and the very last thing I'll say about it is the way that I do feel confident dumbing it down is I think sometimes things maybe can't be quite as simple as you want them to be, but they can be in the ballpark most of the time. And if in any situation, but we'll apply it now to football defense, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, I don't know what I need. Go out there. We're going to coach something. Now you go out there and execute it. Maybe not perfectly, but go out there and execute the plan. And if we still are losing, then I go, okay, is it my scheme or is it just conception? Is it genes? The other guys are just better than you. But if you go out there and you zig when you should zag, or you go out there and you think you're in a man, but you drop back in the zone, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I don't know what I need if you don't show me what I'm trying to put out there. And if I'm not teaching it right, then I need to teach it right, or you need to learn better or be smarter, or whatever it is. If I want something and I don't get that effort or that sort of focus on it, then I don't know even what I need to fix because you're not doing what I want you to do. So that's where it's got to start. That's why it's like, if you have physical limitations, at least go out there and execute it. Go out there and be where you're supposed to be. So I know. And then I go, okay, well, we got to pay $3 million. We got to pay $3 million to fix this secondary, or got to pay $5 million to fix this secondary, or whatever it is. But I don't know because you're just not where you're supposed to be. But that's, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but we do need to get to basketball, Ben. What do you make of where things are right now? Because I don't think panic's the right word. I'm not there at all. I know that's where people live. Every time anything happens with Tennessee basketball, everything doesn't go perfectly. You got to burn the whole thing down, right? But, I mean, concern, sure. But, like losing 3 in a row. But I think this might just be one of those rare Barnes teams that has a chance to be much better at the end of the year than it is at the beginning, because we've gotten used to seeing teams that may have peaked too early. Maybe this could be the opposite.
Yeah, I absolutely think that is the case, with Tennessee having a chance to be much better at the end of the season. And I don't know what word I would use to describe how I feel about the basketball team. I guess I'm not worried about this team. I don't think it's at all time to hit the panic button or freak out or call off the dogs and wave the white flag. Yeah. I think this team is going to be really good. I just think that they're going through growing pains right now. And I really do believe the things that Rick Barnes has been saying in his press conferences. One thing that he's been saying his last couple of media availabilities is that all the mistakes that they are making, they're absolutely correctable.
Yes.
And what I think he means by that, which is something he got on his horse about after the Illinois loss, is they are practicing well. They're doing the things that they need to in practice, and then guys are not doing it in the game. And it's not because what the other team is doing. Now, Illinois is really good. And I think in the second half, Illinois' personnel absolutely had something to do with Tennessee struggling.
Physically,
but
did some things.
Yeah, physically, absolutely. But Syracuse, that's a game where Tennessee peed down its leg down the stretch. And Syracuse is not better than Tennessee. Illinois right now is better than Tennessee. The injury-prone version of Kansas that Tennessee played in Las Vegas, Tennessee is better than that version of Kansas, and they also peed down their leg down the stretch of that basketball game. So for the majority of the struggles that we've seen the last 3 games, it's not been what the other team is doing to Tennessee. It's been Tennessee not executing what it does execute in practice, because they are just having these mental lapses. And based off the way Rick talks, it's almost like they're forgetting what they're supposed to do here, what they're supposed to do there. And I think a lot of it is, and not that it's all on Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament, but those 2 guys are learning a lot right now. Yeah. And they are drinking water out of a fire hose, especially Nate Ament, who, as Rick has talked about, is playing solely on the perimeter for the first time in his life at a higher level of basketball against more physical, older young men, more physical young men, and he's just going through growing pains. I think you're going to see the light bulb come on for him at some point in SEC play, first half of SEC play, like you saw with Chaz Lanier last year as he adjusted to the physical nature of the SEC. I really go back to Kennedy Chandler and Kennedy's one-and-done year, and it clicked after that Texas loss. And I believe the SEC Big 12 Challenge, it just clicked for Kennedy, and Kennedy looked like a five-star after that and really played to his expectations. And I don't think it'll take that long for Nate. I think he's going to get to where Tennessee needs him to be. I just think he's going through growing pains right now, and I think Jacoby is as well. I know he technically played point guard at Maryland last year, and I even asked him how much he played off the ball at Maryland recently, and he said not very much. He was basically on the ball the entire time. Mm-hmm. But it's different playing point guard for Rick Barnes than it is anybody else. And Rick's talking point with Jacoby has been that he's asking him to lead the team in a way that he's never been asked to lead. It's always been it's not AAU basketball with Jacoby, but he's always had the score first mentality because that's what he does best as a basketball player, and that's what the teams he's been on has needed from him.
Yes.
This team needs his scoring ability. It's not the only thing. They kind of need a 50-50 split, and Rick's trying to get him to that point. So Tennessee has go-to players in Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament, and they're not playing like it right now. And I think it's not because they lack the ability. I think it's because they're going through a lot of growing pains and having to make adjustments to playing in this system with 11 newcomers and in this league. I know they haven't played a league game yet, but they will here soon. And so I think that you are going to see the absolute best out of Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament at some point, and by the time it matters most, which is March, which is why I'm not panicking, or I'm not – forget the word panic. I'm not even worried about this basketball team. Yeah, it's frustrating to see them lose 3 straight games, but I think as what matters most is them being fine by the time March rolls around, and I think that's what will absolutely happen.
I think with Ament, the reason that I like keeping him on the perimeter, first off, that's his future in the game, without question. And secondly, on a practical level, I think that keeps him in one piece for when you need him down the stretch run. I think if you went through the idea of playing him more, and hey, there might be times if they're chasing a game, he's got to play the 4 occasionally or something because Phillips, they got one less body there now, and if you're down by 10 late in the game, you got to score. You know what I mean? So it might happen, right? I could see some lineups there. But I think you got to be practical about the situation. He's very skinny. And if you put him down on the block in the SEC, I don't know what he's going to look like physically by the end of the season. Physically, when you need him the most late in the season, I worry about a situation where he gets Houstoned or something, like where somebody like Emmanuel Sharp is just like, you know what, bro, I normally score 15, 20 points a game. I don't care if I score 10 tonight. I'm not letting you do anything. I'm going to bother you for every second you're on the floor. I'm going to be physically and verbally just assaulting you, basically, and just doing that kind of stuff to him. And that's why I like keeping him out on the perimeter, because I think that keeps him in one piece for when you need him. And what I think is weird is that we don't say this often with a Rick Barnes basketball team, but those little things, we would have to let him speak to what exactly they are. The rest of us are just kind of looking at games and guessing. I think he's talking about like the defensive rotations and things, where Tennessee is able to play as aggressively as it does on defense because the help and rotation defense is so good. They move on a string. You hear other coaches talk about it. It's like, it's like the music equivalents, like bands who love other bands. Coaches like watching Tennessee's defense because everybody moves on a string and everybody helps, and that's how they're able to do what they do, because they have positional, situational awareness. And you think about it, defense, you got to stay behind somebody, or if you want to go make a play for the ball, get out in the lane, somebody's got to come in behind you and help. And that's what Tennessee rotates so well. And I think there's times where they're leaving some guys, like the corner 3 is always open against Tennessee. If you can get the ball to the corner, this defense, that's the Achilles heel. If you can hit the corner 3, it's hard to get the ball there, but if you can get it there, you're getting an open 3.
Well, and what's causing that open corner 3, the root of that issue because I do agree with you. But the root of that issue is this defense right now does not defend on the ball as well as the last couple with Zakai Ziegler.
And can't possibly get that level.
Yeah, and I don't. They're not going to get to that level, but can they reach? Because that level was just such an extreme. I mean,
that's final boss level backcourt.
Yeah,
defense.
I mean that was extremely the best on-ball defense in the country.
Yes. With
2 guys that should have split the SEC Defensive Player of the Year award last year. But Bishop is an elite on-ball defender. That's not Jacoby's calling card. Nate could probably be pretty good at it just because of his length and athleticism. Amari Abram, he doesn't have the quickest feet, but he has elite hands, which is why you've seen him several times this year get beat off the ball.
Arms.
And long arms. And it's why you've seen him get beat off the ball several times this year, but be able to recover because he's able to stick those long arms in the ball handler's pocket and pick that basketball and force a turnover. But I think what's causing those open corner threes or what's leading to those poor defensive rotations is it all starts at the tip of the spear.
Getting beat top of the.
They especially in that Illinois game, they get beat at the tip of the spear, beat off the ball quite a bit, and it sends Cade Phillips into overhelp mode, Felix into overhelp mode. Guys are having to help off of their man to not give up a free layup
Which means
or a free floater.
Dunk.
Yeah, backside dunk or backside three. And also going off the Illinois game in terms of those details, I think that what you just mentioned is probably the biggest one that Rick is griping about in practice. But then you miss 12 layups, and it's like, how do you miss 12 layups at this level? They're giving me, and I think that's fluky too. Like Tennessee's not going to do that every game. That's not a flaw of Tennessee's. They had an off night in regards to looking back at that basketball game and watching the tape. It's like, how do you miss that many bunnies at the rim? And then the free throws. And the free throws have been more of an issue this year, and not necessarily
just the past 2 or 3 games is when it really got bad.
And it's not even the free throw percentage, it's getting to the free throw line that's been the biggest issue. But in that Illinois game, you miss 12 layups and you miss 10 free throws, it's going to be a long night, especially against that Illinois team that I really like.
Yes. I really like that coach too. I think the way they build rosters, the way that guy, you can tell the respect Rick has for him is very real because he's a very, very good basketball coach.
Yep, the basketball IQ of that Illinois team is sky high. And I was talking to somebody associated with the Tennessee basketball program before that game as both teams were going through layup lines, and I was picking their brain about how really I was asking how Jalen Carey is going to be able to handle the size inside of the Big Z brothers. I'm not going to butcher their name on your lovely show and assault your show by my assault of their last names.
The big guys.
Ivicic, something along those lines.
There you go.
If you say it with a little accent, you can kind of fake it to.
Well, it's got
right.
ch on the end of it because it's Eastern European, so it's got the ch on the end of it.
Yeah, just fake it till you make it. But
Ivicic.
This basketball staffer talked about just the basketball IQ, and as long as like the length won't give Jalen Carey any issues until if he sits there and tries to do too much. If he goes right into his stuff, right into his shot, he's going to be perfectly fine. But the basketball IQ of that Illinois team is so high, if Tennessee is thinking a bunch, Tennessee's basketball IQ is not where that Illinois team is. And I think that you saw that on Saturday, and that's a talking point for Rick Barnes with his basketball team right now.
I agree, and I think we can end the show by saying also, make your layups, make your free throws, and we talked about this the other day. Throw the ball to the chest, catch the ball, keep your feet in bounds. Just start there. And then the world opens up for you. The world is your oyster if you can do those things, is what I would say. And what I would say before we get out of here is, Ben, thank you for being here today. Loved it.
Yes, absolutely. It's nice to reconvene. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, and I hope you get to come back. And I'm going to, now that we've got our room set up and it's lovely and we got all our DIY fun stuff out of the way, knock on wood, we can open up the house for everybody. But I wanted you to be the first one in here for many, many reasons. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Ben.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too, and happy holidays and all of that stuff, too. And you know what, Tom? Same to you, buddy.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We'll catch y'all later.
In 71 hours, I think.
Something, yeah.
72.
We'll be back.
Hold on. 24, 48, 72. We'll see you in 71 hours.
All right, y'all. Take it easy.